pencil was the first thing I noticed. Every other worker in Processing Hall 7 used a stylus. The standard issue Vethani input wand, silver, weighted, paired to the station's intake console, so that each entry logged automatically in triplicate. Transit Authority issued them on the first of employment and replaced them every 6 standard months, whether they needed replacing or not. It was that kind of organization. The wands were logged. The replacements were logged. The logging of the logs was logged. K.L. Soren used a pencil, a human pencil. Hexagonal wooden shaft painted yellow, the paint worn down to bare wood between her second and third fingers. I had watched her use it for 11 months from my station across the hall. She kept it behind her right ear when she wasn't writing. She took it out to annotate, to cross-check, to mark the physical copy of the intake manifest that she kept alongside the official digital record. The Transit Authority did not require a physical copy. She kept one anyway. I am the senior clerk at Cathara Junction Way Station. I have processed 2 truquisismed transit entries in my tenure. I know what a flagged record looks like before the system announces it. Entry 2000-01 was flagged at 0917 Way Station time on the 43rd morning of the new cycle. I saw the amber pulse on K.L. Soren's console from across the hall. I saw her look at it, look at her physical manifest, and then set her pencil behind her ear in the precise unhurried way she always did. Then she waited. The compliance auditors arrived at 0931, 2 of them. Assessor First Class Duvithrell and her junior, a young Vethani clerk whose name I never learned because he said nothing the entire time. They wore the gray sashes of the Classification Division and carried field audit tablets in matching carrying cases. They stood at K.L. Soren's station and pulled up entry 2000-1001 on the console between them. Field 7 is the cargo classification column. It accepts 6-character alphanumeric codes drawn from the Transit Authority's Master Classification Index. 43,000 approved codes, dated quarterly, governing every category of material, biological specimen, or registered cargo that passes through a Vethani way station. Every entry K.L. Soren had ever filed contained a correct 6-character code in Field 7. Every entry in the entire history of Cathara Junction Way Station contained a correct code in Field 7. Entry 2000 contained 7 handwritten characters. Kaelsor. She had run out of space. Her full name is 8 letters. She had fitted 7. Duvithrell read it twice. She keyed her audit tablet, waited, keyed it again. Then she looked at K.L. Soren. This field accepts classification codes only, Duvithrell said. 6 alphanumeric characters, Master Classification Index. K.L. Soren said, I know. This is not a classification code. K.L. Soren agreed. It isn't. There was a pause. In 11 months I had never seen Duvithrell pause at a station. What is it? The assessor asked. K.L. Soren reached up and took the pencil from behind her ear. She held it loosely, the way someone holds something they have held 10,000 times. It's my name, she said. The cargo I was logging was misdirected. The code field was auto-completed by the console before I caught the error. I manually overwrote the code to flag it for review. The standard correction procedure is a void and refile. There is a void function on the console. I know the void function, K.L. Soren said. The void function would have removed entry 2000-001 from the record and renumbered from 2000. That seemed wrong. 2 million entries is a significant count. I didn't think it should disappear. Duvithrell looked at her tablet. She looked at the console. She looked at the 7 handwritten characters on the screen, which the console's optical layer had dutifully scanned and reproduced in the digital record exactly as written. Pencil pressure, slight leftward slant, the R slightly smaller than the others because K.L. Soren had been running out of space. A name is not a classification code, Duvithrell said again. Her voice was very level. I recognized the tone. It was the tone of someone rereading a rule, because the situation in front of them is not covered by the rule, and rereading the rule twice does not make it cover the situation. She filed an upward referral at 0944. Her junior stood very still throughout. The second-tier assessor arrived at 1008. His name was Compliance Director Ven, and he had the look of a man who had not personally visited a Processing Hall floor in some time. He stood at Kale Soren's station for 4 minutes, reading the record. Then he opened his own tablet and cross-referenced for another 6 minutes. Then he looked at Kale Soren. The Master Classification Index governs all entries in Field 7, he said. Yes, Kale Soren said. Personal name does not appear in the Master Classification Index. No, she said. Therefore it constitutes a non-compliant entry. I'd agree with that, Kale Soren said. Non-compliant entries are subject to void and refile. The void function, Kale Soren said patiently, removes the entry from the record. Entry 2001 would cease to exist as a discrete count. I flagged the misdirected cargo compliance director. The cargo has since been correctly routed. The underlying transit action is complete and accurate. Only Field 7 is irregular. Solith Ven looked at Field 7 for a long moment. A name, he said, is not a category violation. No, Kale Soren said. He filed an upward referral at 10:29. I went to the commissary for my midday meal at 1100 and returned at 11:35. By then there were 4 compliance personnel at Kale Soren's station, including a deputy registrar I had seen only twice in 7 years, a small, Vethani, named Ordis Keth, who handled the classification disputes that could not be resolved at any lower tier. Kale Soren was sitting at her station, eating something from a container she had apparently brought from the commissary herself, using a small fork, watching them work. The problem, as near as I could reconstruct it from the documentation later released through the standard transparency process, was this. The void and refile procedure required a finding that the entry was invalid. An invalid entry was defined as one containing incorrect, fabricated, or prohibited data. Kale Soren's name was not incorrect. It was her name, it was not fabricated, and it was not prohibited. There was no provision in the Classification Index or the Transit Authority Code of Conduct that prohibited a worker from writing her name, because no worker in the history of Cathara Junction had ever written her name in Field 7 of an intake log, and no prohibition had therefore been considered necessary. The name could not be voided, but it could not be classified. Entry 2001 sat in the Compliance Division system for 9 days. I know because I checked the amber flag status each morning. It stayed amber. A flagged entry cannot be closed. A flagged entry that cannot be voided cannot be reclassified. A flagged entry that cannot be reclassified sits in the queue and the queue does not clear. On the 4th day, the amber flag on Kale Soren's console was manually deactivated by order of the Deputy Registrar's office so that she could continue to process new entries. The flag in the compliance system remained. On the 9th day, the Transit Authority Classification Board issued Amendment 7441 to the Master Classification Index. A new field was created. It was designated Field 7A, Personal Claimant Notation, Non-Code. The field accepted alphabetical characters only, up to 12 in length, optional, for use when a worker required a non-code personal notation attached to a flagged entry for internal tracking purposes. Entry 2001 was retroactively recategorized as a valid entry containing a Field 7A notation predating the amendment. The cargo had been correctly routed. The record was accurate. The entry was closed. I watched Kale Soren read the closure notification on her console. She read it once, nodded slightly, and reached up to put her pencil behind her ear. She went back to work. I have thought about Entry 2001 many times since. The Classification Board processed it as a procedural anomaly requiring a statutory correction. I have read Amendment 7441 several times. It is 3 paragraphs long. It is precisely worded. It addresses exactly the situation that arose and no other. What it does not say, anywhere in its 3 careful paragraphs, is that a name is not a code. That a name is a different kind of thing entirely. That you can build a classification system with 43,000 approved codes and quarterly updates and void functions, and upward referrals, 4 tiers of authority, and a worker with a yellow pencil and 11 months of accurate entries can set her name down in the one field where names were never supposed to go, and the system will spend 9 days discovering that it has no answer for her. It will build an answer eventually. It always does, but it will never be able to say she was wrong. Kale Soren still keeps the physical manifest. She still uses the pencil. I asked her once, after the amendment cleared, whether she had planned it. Whether she had waited for entry 2,000,001 specifically, knowing the count, knowing the weight of it. She looked at me for a moment with the particular expression she sometimes had, the one that was not quite a smile and not quite something else. 2 million is a significant count, she said. I didn't think it should disappear. That was all she said. She put the pencil behind her ear and went back to work.